Hello. So weird to see yourself back to front. Sorry, that just threw me. Like you don't see me back to front, but I see myself back to front. It's really confusing. Nice. Nice to see you, nice. I hope you're having a beautiful Wednesday. Well, that's only if you're watching it live. If you're not watching it live, then it might be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I hope you're having a beautiful day. Welcome to live stream. Let me just tell you a little bit about how it works. So if this is your first time on live stream, then the way it works is that, let me just make everything small, that you can speak to me through Skype, and my Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. It's in the box below. And if you want to speak to me, then you have to use a headset with a microphone in it, and make sure that you have good internet connection, stable internet connection. You can also write me messages as well through Skype. Yes, I do these talks every Wednesday and Sunday at 6 p.m. French time, but make sure you check my website. That again is in the box below. The information is there, and it will tell you the dates that I'm not available to do the talks. I normally like to start the talk with silence. Let me just, what's it I wanted to look at? Sometimes my memory. Yeah, I've forgotten. Oh, the name of the talk. So what is the name of the talk today? Can non-duality help reduce anxiety? That is the name talk today. Very important talk. But I won't start talking for about another 5-10 minutes. I just always like to sit in silence before I start speaking. So hello, welcome. So we take everything that we are as so personal. We always think that I've got anxiety, or I've got problems, or I've got difficulties. So we always claim everything. Like so you sit there and you think that you have stress or you have anxiety, but who is this I that actually has anxiety? Who has the anxiety? So something happens, an event happens, and stress is created in your body. It's not necessarily a conscious thought which creates the stress. Sometimes it's an unconscious response to a situation. Maybe you see aggression out on the street, or you see bills that you'd not expected on your table, and before you can even think about it, there's an unconscious response that happens in your body. And then you think that you did that you're guilty, that you did that, you created anxiety. Whereas actually your anxiety and your discomfort is something that's formed from everything else that's happened. So it's from the way that your parents treated you, from the way that their parents treated them, to your genetics, the way you were born, the manner in which you were born, your first years of life. Like all of that was important to how you respond with particular circumstances now. And then when your thoughts go crazy about something, so say something goes desperately wrong, or maybe it doesn't even go wrong, you're just stressed about something, and your thoughts are rapidly thinking about that subject and obsessing about that subject and can't get your mind off it. We still believe that is us, that is who we are. Whereas actually that's something that happens. It's a happening from no place. It's not actually happening from you. You're not guilty. You're not responsible of the stress or the anxiety. But on the surface, there's this me that says, that's me, and I'm guilty for this, and I've done something wrong for this. And that's how our society kind of plays. Like it's always telling you it's your responsibility to be happy. You've got to do this, this, and this in order to be happy. And if you're not happy, then it's your fault. And that's what other people sort of push onto you as well. Whereas actually it's not true. It's something that happens. In each moment there are responses happening. There are impulses happening. And they don't actually belong to anyone. They're not somebody's impulses. The idea that you're someone behind everything, like in a secret room behind your consciousness, like typing everything in, I'm going to have stress there, going to be a bit of happiness there, a bit of this, a bit of that, and then it's all manifesting, is an absolute lie. When you really go deeply into meditation or deeply into yourself, you see that all thoughts and feelings and experiences are arising out of no place, right here, right now, arising out of no place. And it's so free and boundless, this no place. It's who you actually are. The mistake is, though, you think you're the person that's stressed, so you think you're something on top that's appearing, whereas actually who you truly are is what all experiences are coming from, which is not a thing found in this world, but yet simultaneously all things. So you're not actually someone with anxiety, so that's your first mistake, is the idea that you're a solid entity that owns this anxiety and it's your job to fix it. So what we can say about anxiety is that the way that your body is functioning in time either affects or decreases it. So if you spend like all weekend drinking alcohol, then maybe on Monday your anxiety is heightened. If you drink lots of coffee, maybe the anxiety is heightened. See, this is where the mistake lies, because then you still think that that's you. You chose to get drunk and therefore the anxiety is your problem. You chose to drink the coffee, therefore the anxiety is your problem. Whereas actually all of that was arising from no place as well. It all arises from no place spontaneously, and it's like this kaleidoscope dance of form. And all these things are happening, and one goes to the other and to the other and to the other. And really it's nobody's responsible. Nobody has jurisdiction over anything. This claim of the person is what leads to suffering, that it's you. So the anxiety, to me, the way non-duality reduces anxiety is not so much from methods that you learn to reduce anxiety, because there does seem to be methods that can be learned that reduce anxiety, but more because it's seen that it's not you that has anxiety. Anxiety doesn't belong to you. And that is deeply relaxing, knowing that who you are is a pattern, is a response that's happening. And anxiety comes from many different experiences. Or distress or discomfort. And some people just get anxiety in particular situations. They're sort of having a bit of a trauma recall. So like something stressful happens and then it reminds them of something in childhood, and they have a bit of a non-duality helps anxiety because it's seen that that's not you. But if you've got a body that's had a lifetime of anxiety and has a habit of anxiety, that doesn't necessarily mean that this energetic shift stops the tendency towards anxiety. It relaxes it like tenfold because it's not your anxiety. And it might through time expand more and more away the body mind from anxiety. So there might be an expansion which evolves past anxiety. But it also might be like a deeply entrenched habit to go to forms of anxiety. I know that's deeply disappointing for most people, because what you hope about enlightenment is the idea that it fixes all your ailments and that you end up living in bliss for the rest of your life, like running through poppy fields like, woohoo! Woohoo! But I don't think that's the case. It's certainly not the case for me. I can't claim that I know what it's like to be in all other speakers. Some claim that there's never any stress or anxiety anymore. And others don't. Each to their own. To me, the way it is the freedom is this energetic shift. That who you are is expanded and free now. And it's something that happens prior to the person. It's not happening to the person. So then that movement back to who you are can affect the person, but it doesn't make the person a certain way. It doesn't necessarily change the person that much. And this is where people get stuck, go back into the person. They have this realization or that energetic shift, and they go back into the person because they believe that the person's going to be perfect, and they're waiting for the person to get somewhere. They're waiting for the person to get to this line like, I'm finished, I'm an enlightened person, and I'm always kind, or I'm always like this, or I always respond like that. Whereas it's not to do with that world. And if you believe it's that world, then you'll always seek in this world for a particular experience. Whereas it's something beyond that. Who is it that's experiencing that person with anxiety? There's this massive, infinite space which surrounds that vessel that has anxiety. And it's so free and it's accessible now. It's not like you have to work in order to get to that, and you have to do something in order to get to that. It's right here, this massive space, this infinite space, in all your hells and all your suffering and all your discomfort and all the problems on the human level. I bring it back to me a little about, so for an example, like I still have trauma from school, or maybe not, maybe trauma is still a bit of a hard word, but there's still difficulties that I come up against with school. So when I was at school, I had severe dyslexia. I'm sure a lot of you know that. And in the 80s, it was really, they were getting a bit better with the understanding of dyslexia, but it was still quite bad. Like I was often sent to sit in the corner. I was often not allowed to play at break times because I couldn't do my work. I was often shouted at, screamed at, sent outside the room. And that's really like shocking for a child when you really can't do something which the teacher thinks you're being naughty because you can't do. It's like, so imagine if a child is like colorblind and the teacher, like every day, all the kids have to point out all the different colors, and there's one kid that can't, and the teacher is just like, what's wrong with you? You're stupid. Why are you being naughty? Point out the colors. And they can't understand that like the child's brain just works differently, and no matter how much you try and teach them to spell or teach them grammar or teach them to read, they can't learn in the same way that the majority of kids are learning, and it's actually quite hopeless being in a big class like that. And it's a difficulty in the solar plexus. It's that feeling like I don't know if you've ever experienced that. If you've not got like a learning difficulty, maybe you haven't. It's like where you're stuck in a situation, and no matter what you do, it's like quicksand. You can't fix it. You can't make yourself good at it. You can't just suddenly fake it or stand up to all the other kids and suddenly start reading really immaculately. It just doesn't work. And then you're also scared of like the consequences of being screamed at. And it's a feeling in the solar plexus of like, I can't do it to like really like strong. And it's also a fear, which maybe comes a bit lower, of being punished, that someone's going to punish you. And I still get this with authority figures. So I still get this with like people in government, people that take the authority figure as well. You know, some people in society really take on that authoritarian personality. And if they're really firm with you, like, you must do this for me or something. Paperwork for my taxes, like keeping up with all the paperwork for the house and my bills for the house. Doing things on time. Like, not all of those things, but every so often I can get like that feeling in the solar plexus where it feels like a lump. I don't really have so much seeking or thoughts around it that are seeking to get out of it or thinking how to resolve it. It's more just like the visceral experience that of just like a pain in your gut, like a very like embodied feeling. And if I really put attention on it, I can hear very like subtle thoughts that are in there, very, very subtle, of like someone's going to punish me or I'm going to get screamed at, those sorts of things. And that to me is something that through the years will expand and expand, but it's part of this body story. And I know that seems so hard for you to imagine, like you're all thinking, no, that's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is getting over that, which fair enough, if that's what enlightenment is to you, that's enlightenment to you. But to me, the freedom is seeing what is it that experiences that there's something that's experiencing that is huge, that's always here, that never moves, that's infinite. There's this big space around it, and that's part of being human. Our bodily sensations go into pleasure and pain, and as you grow in this subject and you evolve, they dissipate and they become more open and they maybe have less response. But that's not the freedom, because who is that? It's simply a reaction of the body. So most of you think that, even in the way I communicate, that that's Lisa's story, and that's Lisa that didn't get something, or Lisa that has failed to understand something, or Lisa that hasn't released certain karmas. But who is this Lisa that you believe in so strongly? Who is this you that has anxiety or discomfort or trauma around certain things? There is no solid you. There's no solid you that's ever going to get anywhere. And the idea that your body is going to get to a permanent state of bliss and that that is you is simply an idea that will keep you seeking. Who is it that experiences that? What is it that's experiencing that? This silence, this stillness, this space, this infinite nature that's right here, this looking that goes beyond all of that. And it's in that, it's in knowing who you truly are, that these feelings can be fully experienced. So letting them up like in their full veracity, and then they pass into something else. And it's knowing that it's not about getting to a perfect human. If that's what you're looking for, you'll be endlessly seeking. When you're waking up and after there's been like a shift, like looking at your dynamics is super helpful on the personal level. So it took me years to understand, why I would reject paperwork or not open mail or ignore it or avoid it or find sneaky ways to get around it. And it took me years to really get down to that feeling. And so now when that feeling comes up, I know instantly what's happening. And that's really helpful on the human level, like understanding the psychology of these bizarre bodies that do bizarre things. And in that it's healing, and in that it changes, and in that it stops you being so reactive. But notice it. Just notice it. So what's happening in your experience now? So there's a body that feels things. Maybe there's like a tight energy or an open energy, a loving energy or a sad energy. Just really like drop your attention into your body and really let it in. Like all your experience. Like stop trying to like avoid your experience. So your mind is like seeking, or your mind is like trying to get to another place, trying to get to past or future. But really let the sensation in. Like all the sensation, like what's happening in your feet, what's happening in your gut, what's happening in your heart. I was going to say art. What's happening in your throat. And then see that all of that is happening in a knowing. That that's not a knower. The thoughts aren't a knower. The feelings aren't a knower. All of it's happening in knowing. It knows them. Just let me check that I'm still streaming. Sometimes it has happened that I'm, talking away for ages and then I realise that the stream's not working. So I always, when I'm off on a rant, I then like to go back just to make sure it's working. The volume's off, that's happened a few times. It just let me check, the volume's on. So really letting everything in. And it's through that, like really just being honest to the experience, that there's something that's watching all of that. There's something that knows all of that, that's free, that's expansive, that's not bound, that's not a thing and everything. That's your freedom. So yes, that can reduce anxiety to an extent, but that's not the point. The point is seeing that there's a freedom beyond all of that. Okay, let me open Skype and see if there's any questions. Hello, Hassan. Hello, Hidden. The book you're writing, is it only about non-duality, or is it a book most people can enjoy? It's for most people. It's not just for people interested in non-duality. It's for everybody. Dorin. Hi, Dorin. Hi, Lisa. I realize that there is nothing more important than finally surrendering and live by the heart, but I have also a lot of fear and desire to find a partner with whom to share this process of dropping. Was very strong. Having a partner with strong desire all my life was a strong desire all my life. Now I feel that I cannot surrender before finding one that is also sincerely on the path. Even if I intuit what you will answer, still want to know your view on this. Thanks. Just from this sentence that says, finally surrender and live by the heart, that still sounds like you have an expectation that the heart is a feeling. Maybe you mean the heart of being, like everything, but I just got the sense that you mean like a feeling in your body. That's really wise on the human level, to like follow more the feelings in your body rather than your mental story or image of yourself. Although thinking is important as feeling, thinking's got its place as well, it is also important. But non-duality isn't any feeling. It's not a sensation, it's not something you know. It's not something that will direct your life. It's silently witnessing, experiencing itself. And it is love, so you could call it the heart of being. I would really look at your desires to have a partner. So this is back to the human level. And I would really look at what it is that your heart or your solar plexus or your body says about wanting a partner. Like, why is it that you want a partner? What is it that you want from a partner? What does it mean to really share this path? What happens to you if you don't have that? Because on the human level, everything is a series of pleasure and pain, and nothing's going to ever complete you. What you're really looking for is non-duality, which is beyond the human realm. That's who you are, that's who's experiencing now, that's that silence which is hearing my voice. You think that you hear my voice and that you're somebody in time that wants a partner that hears my voice, whereas actually it's not. The body is a receiver, the body interprets the sound, but that which is conscious of the sound and that which is experiencing now isn't of form. It's silent, it's still, it's looking, it's experiencing right here, without any thought, without any idea, without any feeling. All of that comes and goes in it. So what is it that you really want from them? What is it that you're looking for? And most of the time it becomes like a seeking energy, and it becomes really important to you, where you mistakenly believe that that person or those experiences will give you non-duality, will give you that true sense of being. That's what seeking comes. Seeking is this energy which is really holding on to the idea unconsciously that form will bring you to non-duality, but form comes and goes in non-duality. So what is it that's always here and remains? It's like the trick of life. Sean. Thank you, Doreen, for your question. Sean. Okay, I'm just going to get my computer to read this out because it's a long one.
Hi Lisa, I suffer from anxiety and depression. I love your sad slang and have enjoyed seeing you grow spiritually to a place I respect much more than the average teacher. I would like to know if advanced spirituality can help with depression mostly, and can you please once again explain the energetic shift? I think I get it, but there is some confusion still. I have separated from thought and live mostly from presence, but I need to practice it. Scott Killaby, a highly respected non-dual teacher, told me in a one-on-one he needed to practice it, being present, and it's a myth that you don't need to. Can you clarify, mate, please? Sorry for the long message, and could you do a guided meditation sometime, as it would be great. You always describe experience very well.
So practicing presence is for the person. And I think that Scott's right. Like, I think it's really healthy for the person to practice presence, because the mind's got a tendency to go off in many directions and have lots of tentacles, like going out in many ways. So practicing that is really healthy for the person. But when it comes to non-duality, it's seeing what is it that's beyond the movement of the person. So what is it that's beyond that person that feels like it can do presence, that it can put its attention in presence, that it can wake itself up, that it can decrease depression. So what is it that always remains when all of that comes and goes? But practicing presence on the human level is super healthy for the human, to put your attention back in the I am or back in consciousness. But know that all of that's being experienced by who you truly are. And you on the human level will never get to non-duality. You as the human is appearing in non-duality. And it's wise to practice putting the person into presence, because it settles the person down. And if you're really suffering, how the hell can you hear non-duality? If you're really suffering, sometimes people really suffer and then they have like a big energetic shift. But a lot of the time what happens is the person just reduces in its neurosis and its patterns and its seeking patterns. And then it's gradually seen, it's gradually revealed. So doing that is a really wise thing. The energetic shift is a movement from being this limited person that's inside the body, that has anxiety, that puts its attention in presence, that does things in order to wake up, to everything, to remembering energetically this movement from being limited to back into everything. So who you truly are is everything. You're the walls, you're the sofa, you're the sound of my voice, you are everything right now appearing. You're a no thing appearing as everything, which is huge, that's infinite, it's beyond the size. So now when I'm speaking, like, your attention is most probably focused on my words and my face, but notice how there is a consciousness also of the wall behind me, the window, the table, the chair, whatever else is behind me. You're conscious of all of that, and that's happening beyond you. When you wake up in the morning, there is instantaneously consciousness there. There's not somebody before consciousness gets switched on that's like, poop, 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 poop. Turn on consciousness, because there's no consciousness. Even if that did happen, there's nobody that's conscious of it. So consciousness is the birthright of all things, and it's right here, and it's in all things. It's not that you're conscious and that you're looking from inside your brain and that your brain is conscious. All things are conscious. All things are conscious. Thank you so much. Well explained. How does this energetic shift happen? I don't know. It's just something that happens. It's grace. Everything is grace ultimately, but it's really handy to be able to say it's grace. That everything is grace, but you can't make it happen. It's something that happens. But the only thing that I can recommend, because who would be the person that has the energetic shift, the only thing I can recommend is the person doing things to help settle themselves down, like doing things to calm this body down and to relax it and to de-stress and to declutter and to tidy up its cage. And I think that's wise. I think you should do that. But you can't get to non-duality. Non-duality will happen. It's something that happens. At some point, that elastic of being you will break, and then there is everything. Do you think putting the attention on what is can make the shift? That's no different from putting the attention on the consciousness or the I am. So you're just asking the same question with a slightly different word. Thank you. Hi Vishil. Hey Lisa, free to talk? Sure, just let me plug myself in. It's cool. Okay. Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Oh wait, can you see me? Wait.
No, it's okay. It's okay not to see you because it uses up my internet.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's been a while. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Have you been away on work?
No, actually, I was on a 2-week meditation retreat in Temecula, which was quite lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, very intense as well.
What type of meditation was it?
It was Advaita. It was so there was a little bit more of a social atmosphere than say a Vipassana retreat.
Yeah.
Wine at dinner, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was absolutely lovely, and obviously I had the ability to just kind of go in and be alone and sit in the corner and be a good meditator. So, and that's mostly what I was doing for the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful because I just kind of discovered this silence, like the silence that's even around among words, right, and objects and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of it's so much, I don't know, there's so much wisdom there.
Yeah.
There's you just kind of stay there and things just unravel on their own, and like things just kind of take care of themselves in an interesting way.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I like the way that you phrased it, like the silence that's around really long words.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I think I hit you up though because like you said something very interesting about because one thing that started coming up was also that love that you were referring to. The love of the love that I am. Yeah, there's just been a very like clear, but maybe not consistent seeing of it. But I don't know, like I don't know. I guess what I was noticing, at least this morning, was like this tendency that also came from around my school days was a tendency towards unlovability, like giving my finding any excuse to feel unworthy of love, and and it does feel like just a personal tendency, but but my approach, I guess, and I just wanted to run it by you, is just kind of contemplating that non-dual love, is there love that's ever present?
Yeah.
And am I that love?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's really what you've always been looking for. So as a kid, you got mistaken. Like, so when you began to feel unloved on the human level, you thought the answer was, rather than just that feeling appearing, that experience appearing, you connected the dots unconsciously and thought that love was getting to the hang on, I've got that back to front actually. So when you were younger, I have to start again. I got confused then. When you were when you were younger, like your that trauma happened or that experience happened. So the feeling came up and said, "I'm not lovable," and then what you did was you remembered this love, this all-encompassing love, because we all know it, we all remember it, we all have a taste of it. It's the sense of I am, it's the sense of being, and it's there in all experience. But then what your mind did was your mind mistakenly thought that that unconditioned love comes from being accepted by people, being loved by people, by being not rejected by people. And then that seeking loop happens, and then this is when the person begins to get in suffering. So it's not actually the initial feelings. So say if you have parents that don't give you attention, or you're in a circumstance where your partner no longer loves you anymore, it's not that that's inherently the problem. That is a pain that arises in your heart area, and that connects to your childhood, like not being loved enough by the parents. So it's like a vibration, a pain, and it's just a pain that's happening. But then the mind takes hold of it, and the mind isn't really conscious of that, and then it desperately tries to seek for love from that partner. Like it can't let go of that partner, it holds on to it, and it becomes like an addiction. And it's just a cross belief that you believe that environments are going to fulfill you and situations are going to fulfill you. They never will fulfill you, ever. They will come and go like all feelings. And then what we also get to in non-duality is we get to this point where we think that we'll become totally unconditioned, and that's when we'll be loved. We'll stop having feelings, and that's when we'll be loved. Whereas actually it's right here in your experience, that love. It's that I am, it's that sense of being. But sometimes it can be heavily masked because there's lots of like seeking energy or discomfort energy, so you can't touch that.
Mm-hmm.
And non-duality or becoming unconditioned becomes the new game. So you're always waiting to get over something, you're always waiting to not feel a certain feeling, or to experience a certain thing, or to have a particular reaction. I'm waiting and waiting.
I see. I might be. Yeah, I feel like I might be stuck in a little bit of a self-improvement game in that way. You know, I see the unlovable tendency and like, well, clearly I can't feel or I can't be the love until this thing goes away.
Yeah.
But no, the love is here regardless.
Yeah, it's that sense of I am. It's that sense of being.
Yeah.
And it can be a strong tendency, these things. So it's like when you go out of the house, if people look at you a certain way, maybe you feel suddenly unlovable, and it quickly brings up that shame in your body, and your body closes down. And then through that closing down, then the mind quickly goes into that story and then begins to think, if I didn't feel this, if I could release it, I've got to release it. Whereas actually, so the body's closed down, the feeling's closed down, but your sense of being is still expanded, is still everywhere. And even that feeling that's closed down is actually everywhere. It also isn't limited anywhere. It just feels like an idea. It's actually life or God or everything that's holding that feeling. It just feels like it's yours. It feels like it belongs to you, and that there's a certain you inside the body, and this you is going to get somewhere. But there's never been the existence of you. Doesn't mean that you don't spend time getting to know that feeling, because like staying, like not being afraid of that feeling is it in a way, like not trying to get away from it. So just feeling that burn in the heart chakra when you feel unloved, when you feel put down.
It's nice feeling it in the context, though, of I don't know, the context of non-duality, if I can say it like that.
Yeah.
Just it allows that clench to kind of move and open.
So beautiful, also just sitting in silence. Like, I'm happy for you that you did this retreat. It's so beautiful just sitting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's yeah, that really is the beauty of retreat. It's and I don't know, like the temptation, because it's, yeah, again, like it's not a Vipassana style retreat. There's a very social atmosphere, and it's the temptation in that context can be like when I really should be like, how do you say? Yeah, like you said, becoming familiar with, say, this very, very intense emotion of unlovability. Maybe I'd rather just seek love from the people around me,
Yeah.
you know? That seems like a much easier, but I don't know.
Yeah.
At some point, my teacher just kind of like, she just very bluntly said, "You're not here to socialize." I'm like, yeah, yeah, you're right, you know. And I, no, and I'm very thankful that I was able to, yeah, just sit with it, and I found that a lot. There's actually a lot of, yeah, the unlovability is not just, yeah, I feel like it kind of permeated a lot of aspects of my life.
Yeah.
Um, like I think the inn was kind of a romantic breakup, actually. Not to beat around the bush, but like I started to see the unlovability, like when I started to become familiar with it. Oh, it's also career, lifestyle. Um, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, just I started, yeah.
Yeah, it does. These our karmas affect all areas of our life.
Hmm.
Like all of us, we're like machines. So if you've been taught often as a child that you're not lovable, then your body is programmed to seek and to look for that.
Hmm. Yeah, in many aspects of life, I guess.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And in a way, like you could see it all as like a gift, because all of these things are what make you grow in the end, because you have to overcome them in order to survive in this society. Otherwise you fall down and others eat you, or you get killed.
Hmm. Sorry, that last part was a bit choppy. What was that? The last few,
I
last
said,
few bits?
like if you don't like overcome these mountains or these hurdles or your personality structure, then you fall down and you get killed. You get eaten by others. You can't make this life. Like this life is always asking you to expand and grow from your shortcomings. That's the gift of it.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, and yeah, and the fact that yeah, when you get to, how do you say, or when I start fooling myself, when I start like putting myself in this kind of fake, non-dual, peaceful place, suddenly God will just kind of throw something at me like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, I was
Yeah.
bullshitting myself. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes my teacher would like when I'd start like talking, like kind of the non-dual bullshit. It's all one and love, and there's nothing but peace here. And she's like, "Oh, that's really good. How's your career going?" Oh shit. And then I just kind of realized like, oh, okay, yeah, still stuck a little bit.
How's your career going? Silence.
Yep, clutch up. Yeah. Hello?
Hello, I'm still here.
You what?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Do you hear a tapping every time I move?
That's what I thought I heard. It was, yeah, and I thought, oh, wait, is it, it kind of sounded like, how sometimes when the reception gets bad, so that's what I thought happened.
It's actually my earrings. Cat tapping against the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget that because when it's my other microphone, but I think that you're hearing through. I don't know what microphone you're hearing through. I think you're hearing through this one, and then you hear the tapping through the headphone one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because there is kind of a clench in the chest, but there's still there's a pull towards towards the space now. It's almost it's funny. They're kind of existing at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what we think it's open, like that it's our body open. So it's all your feelings in a state of pleasure. And often when we have these awakening experiences, our body is in a state of pleasure. But you can actually have tightness in your torso and you can be expanded. You can be infinite.
Yeah.
So what our mind is subtly doing is it's always rejecting negative feelings and negative karmas. And it's the opposite of what, it's not that should be done, but it's the opposite. Like, I can't think of a better word than saying should, but what the way to handle it is to totally embrace the negative and to totally accept that on the human level we have karma. And yes, we can expand from that karma and we can change that karma, but it's also deeply embedded in our genetic history and our DNA. And our body has to have karma in order to respond. But you can have this like huge infinite space with all of that response happening. And you've got to I always think it's polite to work on your shit. Like that's the polite human thing to do, like the ethical human thing to do is to work on your karma, so see your karma. So when you're in relationship to someone, you can see when your karma is getting overexcited and being too dominant or too controlling or too bossy or too whingy or too whatever it is. So you can see that and you don't have to keep acting it out with people. You can act to an extent the karma is going to be acted out, you can't help it, but you don't have to keep acting out very difficult scenarios again and again and again. You can catch them and you can move away from them. But also you can be free in all of that. There can be this massive expansion happening while the human is being a human. And that was radical for me, when Roger was one of my teachers, and when he would say that you could be, I used to get so angry with him because he would say that you could experience anger and be free. I'll be it would just make me so mad, him saying that. And one day we were walking through the forest and he was annoying me by saying this, and I began to get angry, and then suddenly I had this huge expansion, and then I was angry simultaneously, and I was like, no shit, oh yeah, you can be both. You can be both. What does change is the seeking energy, though that's spiraling out of control, that seeking energy, and that can be something that changes instantly, or it can change and dissipate through time. That pattern of thinking that if I don't get angry, or if somebody loves me, then I will be fulfilled by that. And what you're unconsciously believing is that fulfillment will be that love, that I am your true essence. Mm-hmm. And then you never get there. So that's what dissipates and changes.
and I suppose that when the seeking energy goes, like this unlovability probably won't have much ground to stand on either.
The seeking for that, but if you've been taught, so if you were brought up in like a really abusive home where you were told that you are unlovable, like, so your assumption is to put yourself below other people, energetically you might still do that. Energetically you might still feel like you're lower than other people, like energetically, just like in a dog pack where you've got all the different levels of dogs. Like you've got the runt dog, and then you've got the top dog, the medium dog, like you've got all the different levels. So so your personality might still tend to respond in that way. So say if your partner doesn't call you for a few days or doesn't respond to you, you might begin to get a burning in your chest. And then when you really go into it, you might realize that you feel unloved. And then you can trace that back to your childhood when you felt unloved. Yeah. So there might still be the tendency there. But it won't be like it was before, dictating your whole life. But you'll notice like a shadow or like a ghost still there, the patterns of the human. So if you take away unlivability, because that's quite an emotive topic, and if you say anger, so say when you were younger, your older brother always used to steal things from you and cross your boundaries. And so when people don't return your stuff or don't respect your stuff and anger arises, that doesn't necessarily have to go. You still might, as an adult, even knowing this freedom, have a tendency to be protective over your stuff. But what our mentality is, as humans, is to always be radical about everything and think, I'm going to become totally unconditioned and my whole past is all going to disappear and I'm never going to get reactive and I'm never going to act out of past things again. And if I do, that means I'm not enlightened. Whereas actually they're simply feelings that arise from a pattern of behavior that you've experienced as a child. So if we take it to Khaleesi, to me, Khaleesi, my dog, is totally free. But she can, when it's me and her, she actually has very easy conditioning. Like when it's just me and her, we've got our routine and it's really easy. And when somebody else comes in the house that she knows, it's also really easy. But when somebody comes in the house that she doesn't know, it's really complex. So when we're in scenarios that, like, so say being on a retreat, like I don't have anyone that can look after her, so I often have to take her on my retreats. And Khaleesi cannot stand strangers touching her. And it's my fault. Like, I've known her since she was a baby. She wasn't always my dog. She was a street dog for the first 6 months of her life. And she used to come to my talks. I used to do talks in Thailand, and she used to come to the talks. And she's always been quite a shy dog from when I got her. She was quite shy. But what people used to do is everyone used to come to the talk and they always used to want to stroke her. And she didn't like it. And she felt uncomfortable with it. And I should have stopped people doing it, but I didn't actually notice because I was busy doing the talk. And I should have stopped people like touching her. But what happened to her through those 6 months is that people kept crossing her boundaries. So eventually she would begin to growl at people. And she, when they would touch her and pull her around, she'd begin to growl at them. And if I'd been aware, I could have seen this and told people that she doesn't like being touched. She's a shy dog, she's a quiet dog. And so now from that, and from also taking her to lots of my retreats and people always wanting to touch her, she now has a response. If strangers go to touch her, then she can sometimes growl or bark at them, because that's her way. That's the way that she's learned that she's successful at getting people not to touch her. And now I know the story as to why that evolved, because I didn't really know she was my dog at the first 6 months. I didn't really attempt to train her. Like, she lived on my balcony, but it wasn't like oh, she's my dog. she became my dog. And also I was doing the talks, I didn't really notice that people were coming and invading her space. And I could have either locked her away, or I could have told her that she had to go down in the jungle or in the forest, or like away at that time. But I didn't really notice, so I just let that happen. And then over time, when people kept invading her, she then got a habit to be a little aggressive with people if they tried to touch her that she didn't know. If she knew them, she was fine. And now that stays with her. So I can see how that's happened, and I can see how that conditioning happened. She's not a bad dog or an aggressive dog. I don't see her like that. Other people would say that's aggressive or bad dog. But I see how that panned out, and I see my problem in it. Like I didn't, and I still don't do it on retreat. When I first came back to Europe, I didn't do it enough on retreats because I was too busy doing the retreat. It was too much to think about, and people kept invading her. And so now she has this response to people. So you could say that's the same. You've been trained as a child to respond, to believe that people don't like you or people don't love you when you interact with them. Just like Khaleesi's been trained to believe that humans don't respect her boundaries. Like as a dog fan, I know that you shouldn't touch a dog you don't know. Like I know that, like I know a lot of dogs are friendly because they've been trained to be friendly, but the rule is, if you're a big dog fan, is you don't touch a dog that you don't know until the owner says it's okay. Like that's in the unsaid dictionary of the very obsessive dog fans.
It's common.
Yeah. So she's got that, and so if she was a human, so if she was a child. So say if you had a child conditioned like that, a child was conditioned that her boundaries were crossed unless she was aggressive to people. So in order to have her boundaries respected, she had to be aggressive to people. That would produce a particular personality type, and that would produce quite a strong behavioral dynamic that she becomes aggressive because she realizes her boundaries are being crossed. Now, what we can do as humans is we can understand that, so she can attempt to begin to recondition herself. So if she was a human, Khaleesi, like I could speak to her, and I try to recondition her now, she's good most of the time. Like she's not, to me, a difficult dog around here, but when I take her out and take her on retreats, it's a bit more difficult. So with a human, like she could then attempt to recondition herself that when someone comes to talk to you, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to try and cross your boundary. So you don't necessarily have to be feisty or standoffish. This is just with people you don't know. So she can learn that. She can go to a psychologist and she can learn that about herself. And then she can also see that there was a seeking element that got added on there, that she began to think that if she got people to stay away from her, she'll get back to home. Whereas Khaleesi doesn't have the seeking element because she's always at home. Whereas the human leaves home, so it makes it a more important dynamic. So she goes to a psychologist and she begins to learn, like, okay, so I don't have to act aggressively, but the natural impulse is to act aggressively. So she has to really fight against the momentum of the river. Like she has to really fight to try to change that around. And more than likely, if she's had a long period of that conditioning, it's going to be a lifelong habit that she's going to be working on. Her natural impulse might be to be like, and it's going to be a lifelong habit to try and be friendly to strangers. I have to admit, I'm not the friendliest to strangers. As a dog-like human. Like I was out with my friend yesterday shopping, and my friend is so sociable to everyone. Like to the people that do the shopping, like everybody, she talks to everyone and she's really social, and I really like even both of us aren't that great at French, but I really like how she interacts with people. And I just can't seem to find the words to think of things to say to strangers. And I don't actually feel unfriendly, but I just don't have anything to say. And I tend to be like more withdrawn from people I don't know. So that's a habit. So like you've got a habit as well. And now your next mistake might be that if you fix that habit, you will become enlightened. But who will fix that habit? Who becomes enlightened? It's a habit that plays out in you. Then there can be this extra dynamic of seeking. that gets involved that says, if I get love, then I will, if I get attention, then I will be at home. So that makes it more intense for the human, whereas Khaleesi doesn't have that. So as soon as people aren't around, she's happy, she's in herself, she's free. So there's the seeking element. So then you get into this pattern of them thinking, okay, I've got to be perfectly unconditioned. And it's not true. You're so expanded right now, you're so free right now, even if you've got that sense that people don't like you, or I don't like you, or the window cleaner doesn't like you.
Yes, I'm getting the strong impression that you don't like me, Lisa. I don't know if that's a tendency or just your demeanor, but
I've got to admit that I'm not the friendliest person in the universe. Like I'm not unfriendly to people, but I'm reserved when I meet people. I don't know if it's an English thing, but I'm reserved. I'm not somebody that will jump up and throw my arms around you and be really welcoming. I tend to be more like, oh, hello.
Yeah, when I lived in England versus I lived in London for a year and then I moved straight out to California, and it's very much an English thing.
Yeah.
It's very much an English, because California, they'll just hug you
Yeah.
in an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with hanging out with international thing, I can see that I'm quite reserved compared to people around me.
Yeah. One thing I realized when I was in London is that Americans, we are very loud.
Yeah.
Compared to Europeans, I don't know what it is, but if I walk into a bar or a pub, I know exactly where my American friends are.
Yeah. I think we have this perspective on Americans too. I think we think this as well. That America, I don't think we think that they're loud, but I think we think they're larger than life.
Yeah.
Really.
There's something about the American ethos where it's just that's another thing I noticed. Just what kind of the way that we talk about ourselves versus the way Europeans talk about ourselves. There is kind of a larger than life, nothing's impossible kind of. I don't know. There is something there for sure. But,
yeah.
I had a thought while we were talking though. Because I feel like the unlovability is very different from a lot of the other tendencies that we were just discussing. Because I feel like and you mentioned it earlier, that it does come from a fundamental misconception that love needs to be sought.
Yeah, and that's why it most probably comes with very strong seeking tendency.
Yeah.
That love needs to be something you get for you. Love is super important in the human world.
Yeah, that's what, every movie has to have a love element to it.
Yeah. And so what does love represent then? So in our society, what does it represent if you're loved? If somebody loves you. Maybe that's a bit of a hard question. Maybe it was a bit too leading. It could mean so many things.
Yeah, but it's a fair question. It is. I mean, that's I feel like that's kind of. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine, last night, who she just said that's that's a huge vasana for a lot of people, because it is kind of. And I agree with her. I think that there's just this thing where if I just get this, if I get loved by another person and in a very intimate way, well, forget the enlightenment stuff. This is really this is the happiness that I'm looking for.
And I think it's because love doesn't just represent being in love, so the feeling of love. I think it also represents safety and feeling. It's also got this feeling that you won't be kicked out by the group and killed. So if you have this intimate relationship with someone, or if you're loved, then it means that you're part of the group and part of society, and that you've got somebody that you can depend on as well. So not only is it this ecstasy feeling of being in love and wanting to create children and all this feeling of connection, it also is this sense of being a part of the group and not being alone, and not being kicked out or abandoned.
Yeah. So it's like a prehistoric, like socio-evolutionary tendency to,
Yeah,
yeah, we're tribal creatures, and now we,
yeah,
it's a, yeah, belonging to that tribe.
yeah. And when you have
Yeah.
kids, you know you belong even more. Like it's all tying you in. Like it's all family.
Yeah. Hmm.
So there's two different elements to it. There is this natural want that humans have to be loved. Then there's the setup of your body, so the karma of your body, and then there's this seeking that attaches onto it and believes that your freedom is dependent on getting those and fulfilling those. That home is connected to those.
I got into a lot of Robert Adams recently, and he always says stuff to the effect of, like just kind of let life take care of itself. You just kind of stay as the witness, stay in the silence. And maybe that's why, like, because otherwise you just kind of get stuck in that, yeah, self-improvement
Yeah,
kind of game.
yeah. I think it has to be dealt with to an extent, but I think so too as well. It can become an obsession.
Yeah, and truth be told, I feel like I'm kind of at this place where, like, yeah, I had to like break down a lot of mind. I think it was absolutely necessary. But now it's just the mind, just kind of like, yeah, just this one last thing, then you can kind of hang out in this freedom. This is just one last thing, yeah, then you'll really be at peace. You know,
Yeah,
yeah. So I feel like, yeah, more and more, I see these things come up, and the direction, you know, the real direction is just no, just kind of stay in the stillness, stay in the silence, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, even in this moment, like, yeah, the unlovability tendency, it's not, I feel like there's just a greater pull towards the silence than, actually digging in and, kind of doing the therapy route. Um,
nice. Maybe I move on now to someone else. It was really lovely speaking with you.
you as well. It's always nice.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. Well, thanks for talking.
yeah. Thanks,
Um,
Michelle.
all right, you take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Edith. I don't read out your comment, all of your comment. I just read out a bit of it. What you're talking about tonight is just what I need to hear. Your words bring me back to beyond what I think I am. Oh, lots of love, Edith. I think about you in this time. Let me know how it goes. So I think that's all for tonight. I'm off to walk Khaleesi before it gets too dark. Thank you so much for all your questions and for sharing. I really appreciate your honesty and your openness and your vulnerability. Don't forget to like the video if you like it. This is something important that Google likes. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I shall see you Sunday. Bye.